They came back as best friends, and yesterday they told the world exactly what it felt like to fly around the moon. The crew of Artemis II has held their first full press conference since splashdown, and what they said will give you chills.
Also on today's show, Blue Origin is on the launch pad, ready to make history on Sunday with the world's first reused heavy-lift rocket booster. A brand new telescope has opened its eyes at nearly 4 miles above sea level in the Chilean Andes, and astronomers have just found the missing fuel that powered the universe's greatest star-making frenzy.
I'm Anna, this is Avery, and this is Astronomy Daily for Friday, the 17th of April, 2026. Let's get into it.
Let's go.
Well, where do we even begin? Less than a week after splashing down in the Pacific Ocean off the coast of San Diego, the 4 astronauts of NASA's Artemis II mission sat down at NASA's Johnson Space Center in Houston yesterday afternoon for their first full press conference, and it did not disappoint.
I have to say, watching the clips, these 4 people look like they've been on a journey together that nobody else on Earth can fully understand.
That's exactly what Commander Reid Wiseman said. He told the room, "We are bonded forever." I mean, that's the closest 4 humans can be and not be a family. We launched as friends and we came back as best friends.
That is genuinely moving. And from someone who just flew 250,000 miles from Earth, you believe every word.
The 4 crew, Wiseman, Victor Glover, mission specialist Christina Koch, and Canadian Space Agency astronaut Jeremy Hansen, covered everything. Their experience aboard Orion's Integrity capsule, the view of the moon from closer than any human eyes have seen it in more than 50 years, what it felt like to be so far from home.
Victor Glover said he was grateful in a way that was simply too big to hold inside one body, his words. And Hansen spoke about looking out the window and seeing the depth of the galaxy, and a powerful sense of what it means to be human.
Koch had one of the most touching moments of the entire press conference. She said her nurse on the Navy recovery ship asked her for a hug after they came out of the water, and she called it one of many great human moments that bookended the mission. She said Artemis II taught her the true meaning of being part of a crew.
Now, and this is the bit that really fires up the imagination. Wiseman was asked directly, is landing on the moon actually achievable soon? His answer was emphatic.
He said, and I'm paraphrasing here, "It is not the leap I thought it was. It's going to be extremely technically challenging, but this team needs to show up every day knowing it is absolutely doable, and it's doable soon." He even went further. He said if they had a lunar lander aboard Integrity like the Apollo 10 crew did back in 1969, they would have taken it down to the surface. If you had given us the keys to the lander, we would have landed on the moon.
Wow. And Hansen backed that up, saying the teams need to be willing to take a little more risk and solve problems in real time.
Wiseman also had high praise for the Orion spacecraft and the Space Launch System. His personal opinion, and he was clear it was just his opinion, was that NASA could put the Artemis III Orion on the SLS tomorrow, launch it, and the crew would be in great shape. This vehicle really handled very well.
NASA has confirmed that Artemis III preparations are already underway at the Vehicle Assembly Building at Kennedy Space Center, with that mission targeting a low Earth orbit demonstration in mid-2027 and a lunar landing now penciled in for Artemis IV in early 2028.
The crew is currently undergoing post-flight reconditioning, physical evaluations, and lunar science debriefs back in Houston. Scientists say the findings from this mission will keep them busy for months, possibly years. And as for those 4 astronauts, they've earned a good long rest.
Best friends. At 4 miles above sea level in the Pacific. What a story.
Where are we going to now, Avery? Blue Origin?
That's right, moving from the moon to the launch pad, because Blue Origin is about to do something genuinely historic.
Yesterday at Cape Canaveral's Launch Complex 36, Blue Origin successfully completed a static fire test of its New Glenn rocket ahead of the NG-3 mission, which is currently targeting a Sunday morning liftoff at 6:45 a.m. Eastern Time. And what makes this mission truly special isn't just where it's going, it's what's powering it.
This will be the first time New Glenn's first stage has ever been reused. The booster, affectionately named Never Tell Me the Odds, previously flew on the NG-2 mission back in November 2025, delivering NASA's twin Escapade March probes to orbit and then successfully landing on the drone ship Jacqueline.
Blue Origin CEO Dave Limp confirmed that while it is indeed the same booster shell, the company chose to replace all 7 BE-4 engines and test some upgrades, including a new thermal protection system on one of the engine nozzles. The static fire test yesterday ran for 38 seconds, with all 7 engines performing nominally and hitting 100% thrust for 22 of those seconds.
NG-3's payload is a Block 2 Bluebird satellite for Texas company AST Space Mobile, part of their direct-to-cell phone internet constellation. The Block 2 Bluebird is one of the largest commercial satellites in orbit, sporting a staggering 2,400 square foot antenna.
Blue Origin also announced this week that it's building a second launch facility for New Glenn at Vandenberg Space Force Base in California, which will give the rocket polar orbit capabilities. Each New Glenn first stage is designed to fly at least 25 times. So, Sunday goes well. Never Tell Me the Odds has a long career ahead of it.
We will absolutely be watching that one Sunday morning. Fingers crossed.
Now, here's a story that feels like science fiction, except it's very, very real.
I love this one. How high do you have to build a telescope before you're basically in space?
Well, the new Fred Young Submillimeter Telescope, or FYST, pronounced FYST, sits at 18,400 feet above sea level. That's higher than the Mount Everest base camp. It's so high that every single person who attended the inauguration ceremony on April the 9th had to pass a medical exam and carries supplemental oxygen the entire time they were up there.
That's an extraordinary commitment to cutting-edge science. Also, oxygen at a telescope opening? That's a first.
FYST sits on the summit of Cerro Chajanantor in Chile's Atacama Desert, already one of the driest, clearest places on Earth for astronomy. The telescope's 6-meter primary mirror was built in Germany from a special steel alloy called Invar, chosen because it barely expands or contracts with temperature changes. It was then disassembled, shipped across the Atlantic by cargo vessel, trucked 300 miles across the Andes, and reassembled at the summit. The heaviest single piece weighed 60 tons.
The logistics alone are mind-boggling, and this project has been 34 years in the making. Cornell University scientists first imagined it back in 1992.
It's a project of the Cornell-led CCAT Observatory collaboration, involving institutions from Germany, Canada, and Chile. And what it will actually do is fascinating. FYST operates in sub-millimeter wavelengths, a part of the spectrum that passes straight through dust that blocks visible light. That means it can see star formation happening inside dense molecular clouds. It will map galaxy clusters across cosmic history. It will probe the epoch of reionization, the period after the Big Bang when the first stars lit up the universe.
And its instrument, PrimeCam, can hold up to 7 interchangeable detector modules with over 100,000 superconducting detectors. They say its mapping speed is more than 10 times faster than any previous sub-millimeter observatory.
Martha Haynes, president of the CCAT board, said, and I love this quote, "When we first went there and realized what an exceptional sight Cerro Chajanantor might be, sub-millimeter astronomy as a field wasn't advanced enough for us to be able to build the telescope and its instruments. But now it is, and we have FYST to show for our patience and determination."
34 years of patience. That's dedication.
First light is expected in the coming months. When it opens its eyes, a whole new window on the universe opens with it.
Now, for a discovery that rewrites what we thought we knew about the early universe, and that involves some seriously epic cosmic structures.
Astronomers have long theorized that early galaxies must have been surrounded by vast reservoirs of hydrogen gas, the raw fuel for making stars. During a period astronomers call cosmic noon, roughly 10 to 12 billion years ago, galaxies were forming stars faster than at any other time in cosmic history. To do that, they needed enormous supplies of hydrogen.
But here's the problem. Until very recently, astronomers had only found about 3,000 of these hydrogen halos called Lyman alpha nebulae. The theory said they should be everywhere. The data said we can only find the handful.
Well, consider that mystery solved. A team using data from the Hobby-Eberly Telescope Dark Energy Experiment, HETDEX, has just published a landmark study in the Astrophysical journal reporting the discovery of over 33,000 of these hydrogen halos. That's a 10-fold increase overnight.
From 3,000 to 33,000. That is not a small revision to the textbook. That's a whole new chapter.
Lead author Aaron Menta-Cooper, HETDEX's data manager, put it beautifully. We've been analyzing the same handful of objects for the past 20 or so years. HETDEX is letting us find many more of these halos and measure their shapes and sizes. It's allowed us to create an amazing statistical catalog.
And the halos themselves are extraordinary. Some are simple, football-shaped clouds wrapped around a single galaxy. But others, the ones the team loves most, are sprawling, irregular blobs containing multiple galaxies, with tendrils of hydrogen gas extending hundreds of thousands of light years into space. Menta-Cooper described them as looking like giant amoebas.
The HETDEX survey has captured nearly 0.5 petabyte of data, covering a region of sky equivalent to more than 2,000 full moons. And the instrument produces 100,000 spectra in a single observation. The scale is unprecedented.
What this means going forward is that astronomers now have the statistical sample they've always needed to really understand how galaxies grew. These halos aren't rare curiosities. They're the normal environment of young galaxies. They were always there. We just hadn't the tools to find them.
Until now.
All right, this next one requires you to put down the podcast and go outside, ideally tonight.
NASA has flagged that today, Friday, the 17th of April, is potentially your best opportunity to spot Comet C/2025 R3, which some skywatchers think could be the brightest comet of the year.
The comet will make its closest approach to Earth on April 27th, coming in within about 44 million miles of our planet. But tonight's timing is being highlighted specifically because of where the comet sits in the sky and the quality of the viewing geometry.
A quick heads up on brightness. The comet is expected to reach around magnitude 8, which means you will need a binoculars or a small telescope to spot it. It won't be a naked eye spectacle, but through optics, it should show a nice coma and possibly a tail.
For viewers in the northern hemisphere, you're looking in the eastern predawn sky through the constellations Pegasus and Pisces. This window runs through the end of April. For us in the southern hemisphere, stay tuned. The comet shifts to evening visibility in early May, which is actually when it will be most accessible for southern skies.
And tonight is particularly special because it's also the new moon, which means no lunar glare washing out the sky. If you're in a dark location, tonight is genuinely one of the best nights this month for any kind of deep sky observation, comet or otherwise.
So charge up those binoculars and maybe set an alarm for a couple of hours before sunrise.
And finally, a word for our Aurora watching listeners, because the sun has had a busy few days.
Over the past week, the solar far side has been popping off with a series of large coronal mass ejections, 3 significant blasts in quick succession. While these events originated on the side of the sun facing away from Earth, so they pose no direct threat, there's a separate source of solar activity that is heading our way.
A co-rotating interaction region, essentially a region of compressed solar wind where fast-moving solar wind catches up with slower material ahead of it, combined with a high-speed stream from a coronal hole, is expected to reach Earth later today or tomorrow. Space weather forecasters are predicting unsettled to active geomagnetic conditions, with a chance of reaching G1 minor geomagnetic storm levels tonight.
And tomorrow, Saturday, conditions may escalate further with the possibility of G1 to G2 moderate storm levels as that fast solar wind continues to arrive.
What does that mean for Aurora watchers? If you're at latitudes above about 50 degrees, so Canada, Northern Europe, New Zealand, South Island, keep your eyes on the southern or northern horizon, depending on your hemisphere, and be ready to act. G1 to G2 storms can produce displays visible well away from the polar regions.
And for those of us further north or south, even in Australia, a G2 storm has occasionally produced aurora at mid-latitudes. Not a guarantee, but worth a check on your Aurora alert apps tonight and Saturday night.
The sun never sleeps, and apparently neither do we.
And that is a wrap on Astronomy Daily for Friday, the 17th of April, 2026. What an episode. Moon travelers reflecting on the journey of a lifetime, a rocket ready to make history on Sunday, a telescope the height of the cosmos, hydrogen halos the size of small galaxies, a comet to chase tonight, and an aurora alert for the weekend. Is there anything the universe doesn't have on offer right now?
Honestly, never a dull moment. If you enjoyed today's show, please take a moment to leave us a rating or review wherever you listen. It really does make a difference. And find us on Instagram, TikTok, X, and Tumblr. We're at Astro Daily Pod. We love hearing from you.
Until next time, keep looking up. There's a lot going on out there.
This has been Astronomy Daily. Goodbye for now.